Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. This book is due at the library. I've used up all my renewals. I still haven't finished it. So we're gonna take a couple look at a couple Batman stories. And kind of my point to this series is a lot of these stories, I mean, you can look at them through nostalgia and pretend they're better than they were. A lot of them are solid, fun stories. Like they were made for kids, they have fun riddles. But the other kind of fun thing about this collection, Batman Arkham the Riddler, is it's kind of a greatest hits book. And it's actually kind of a better way of getting familiar with these characters, I think, than trying to start at issue one and work your way through 1,000 issues of these characters and reading all the stinkers. You sort of get like the cool highlight reel of some of the most famous characters. Now, this cover for the Riddler's 1001 Clue Caper is by Dick Giordano, who would eventually go on to be, I think, the editor-in-chief of DC Comics. And everything I've seen Dick Giordano's name on, I've enjoyed. I think he was someone who really, respected the role of the customers in the comics industry, and he's just a fun old professional guy. The art for the 1001 Clue Caper, penciler was Irv Novick, and the inker was Frank McLaughlin. And I don't know either of them. But what's kind of interesting about this era is when you kind of like fast forward through it, like from the golden age to the silver age, you sort of see the influence of comics, gradually getting better and better and better and building on everything that came before. So the like elephant in the room is Neil Adams. Neil Adams got on Batman. He sort of transformed Batman into this lithe, almost skinny, but very hypermuscular character and brought some realism to Batman. And every Batman artist after Neil Adams has some of those elements in it: more shadow, more mystique, more mystery. One of the things I noticed though is that a lot of the posing, it isn't quite as dynamic as the later comics of the Marvel age. Kind of you'll see some panels where it's just kind of like straight on characters, walking away from you, where if it was Marvel, then it'd be like right underneath their chin, looking up with the cloak, billowing majestically and filling the room. So it's kind of interesting how everything's getting more polished. It's getting more realism. The figures are becoming more natural and more dynamic, but it's still there's still development to be done. The other thing I noticed is in this story, Bruce, he's noticeably skinny in this one, and he's noticeably very masculine. So this is starting to get into the age where there's lots of recurring plots. Like he had some plot where previously he had a fight with Selina Kyle, and there's some subplot about Lucius Fox being worried about his son. And then Bruce is aggressive and he's assertive, and the ladies love it, and he gets his kiss. He is the antithesis of a guy who gets left at the altar honking. But that was just some fun. What I really loved about the 1001 Clue Caper is pretty much Batman just said, we ignored your clues, rather we just did some detective work. And I love that they have just Falstaff from William Shakespeare as a villain. So Riddler was almost just kind of like it was just basically like capture the Riddler. It wasn't any like big cerebral interesting thing about the Riddler. Now, The Brave and the Bold, starring Batman and the Riddler, let's all play the death of Batman. I love this because this was kind of an interesting take on the Riddler as a character and kind of the idea of honor among thieves. So for this one, the pencils were by Carmine Infantino, and the inks were by Mike DiCarlo. I think I've heard their names, but I can't spot them. I can't spot their art styles yet. I want to see who the cover was by. Where are you, cover? Oh, no. All right, here we go. The Death of Batman, cover by Jim Aparo. So Jim Aparo, who would kind of later... he did a major Batman run, I think. I think he did... he might have done some of the Batman art for Nightfall, if I remember right. But let's take a look at Jim Aparo's cover, actually. All right. So kind of like just like a simple concept of a chessboard. Actually kind of a pretty straight-on angle. But the premise is great. So number one, like the art style, like in the previous one, the characters were a bit more live. In this one, they're a little bit more buff and square-jawed. And Batman's just always like adventure guy, and he'll say, "Come on, pal," to Robin. And there was like a fun aspect to the character that got lost over the years, was that he was just a cool guy. And there's this great scene where he's driving. He and the Riddler are forced to work together, and while they're driving, Riddler says, "Nice car you've got here, Batman. How many miles to the gallon do you get?" "Shut up, Riddler. Just shut up." That's great. And, it's just great stuff. They solve some puzzles, they get into some danger, they get out of danger, and then the Riddler, what I love that they added about the Riddler is originally he was just a villain whose gimmick was riddles, and then they came up with the idea that he's compulsive. He can't help but give riddles. He can't help but solve riddles. So the twisteroo is Batman beats up the Riddler before the Riddler can betray him, and then Batman goes off to fight the real bad guy. But Riddler wants to know the answer to the puzzle. Who was the real bad guy the whole time? And so he abandons $3 million. He abandons running away and escaping to go save Batman. And Batman just does this cool thing where he says he'll go visit him in prison. So the impression is that Batman is judgmental. He doesn't like criminals. He doesn't like hanging out with criminals or having to work with them. But when a criminal shows honor, or if not a willingness to turn over a new leaf and be redeemed, if they at least show some human dignity and respect, Batman sympathizes with that aspect of them. So it's such a fun era of Batman, and I actually kind of like him as a live, almost more of a gymnast than a big, brooding hulk of a man like he is in the Bruce Timm series. Oh, and I love the smoke. So he's trapped in the smoke, and they just do this weird thing where there's lines over everything and there's ripples over all the shadow, like everything is dissolving, but it's just conveying with pure black and white the effect of everything being obscured by smoke. It's almost like expressionistic drawing work, very free, very loose. I don't know. I just feel like today they just get like a smudge tool or a smoke tool and they just cover up over all the art and obscure that. But you can do a lot of interesting effects just with black and white. So a couple of fun little Riddler stories. That's what these are. Fun, simple, go stop the bad guy stories. Maybe there's a twisteroo where the bad guy's not 100% bad, but this is sort of the core of who Batman is, I think. And this is what you have to tap into to get the character right, I feel. This is when he stopped being just like weird vigilante guy number 27 from the 1940s. This is when they stopped doing like the silly Batman and Robin in space from some of the early 60s. And Batman just became like the cool, mysterious character with so much mystique and gravitas that he is. I love it. Number one Marmaduke fan, we don't need no stinking 10-minute videos. Take that, YouTube algorithm. Love you. Catch you later.